Hey, everybody. Let's go ahead and open it up for experiences or questions. You can unmute yourself, type in, and let's go ahead and process it and see where you guys are at.
Well, if they joined us for the Astara session, they're probably still pretty spacey, but. All right, no questions or shares.
Okay. I'm gonna jump to page 5 towards the top, which is segment 8, and it's the self-reflection. And yeah, let's go that way a little bit more. I mean, it might be odd just jumping to that.
We did the weekend, a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay, so here, like if you have it, blue tansy, dark blue tansy, sage, some form of sage or vetiver. I like this one. It seems very simple, but out of the whole booklet, it's probably the most complex. And we were talking about it on the weekend, but we think of our self-image or how we see ourselves or how the world sees ourselves as being this constant, right? We see it as being this constant, something that's very static. And then we go into situations and we're always a little bit like, oh boy, why did I act this way? Why did I act that way? And there's the self-image that you have when you're by yourself. There's the self-image that you have when you're surrounded by your friends or your loved ones or when all is good. You know what I mean? Then there's the self-image that comes up when we deal with difficult people or difficult situations. And in that is where there's areas that we can refine. Our resting self-image when we're at home and everything's, good or the way we want, it's not really challenged. It's not really shifted. It's, you're in your environment. You know what's going on. But then you deal with that obnoxious uh, relative, or you deal with some difficulty at work, some difficult person, or maybe most of your life is good, but there's this one area that's like, you know, don't like to think about that part too much. And in those areas, that's where things kind of sneak up on us. That's where we get a little rattled or we get a little triggered or sometimes that's where our image and reality of the situation kind of mix. You got somebody who's hostile, be it in the workplace or a family or whoever it is. And it makes you think. It makes you shift. Not in a very good way. But the more we work on those areas, the more that we do have more of a constant. We do have something that's very fortified. And so let's just explore this. This is part therapy, part exploration. So first off, you have one of those oils, one of the tansies, sage, or vetiver. Oh, sure. Ralph has a. Yeah, yeah. Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Greg. Seeing as how I'm way north of 50 years old, and I've got a whole lifetime of things that haven't gone the way that I thought that they should go.
Let's start a club.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I know, huh? The older I
Uh,
get, it's just like put it on the tab. Just put it on the tab.
yeah.
Oh
Well,
my God, I know.
yeah. So I am very challenged by this particular section.
Mhm.
I'm going through and doing it, but let's say I'm challenged.
Okay.
Um, do you have any ideas or any input as to how I can maximize the output of this and deal with some of that tab, so to speak?
Yeah, like everybody's a little bit different, but like I'd say the rule of thumb here is I would start either small or like something that's immediate.
Mhm.
And we usually have big things that, like a big issue or a big incident. We've talked about how your industry changed and all of a sudden you had to scramble around and reinvent yourself.
Mhm.
I would say that's a good one, but it might be a little too much right off the bat. And so, like, I'd knock out some small things where you can kind of have a bit of a shift with things that, maybe are not so big or not so overwhelming. A difficulty at work or weird thing with a workman last week at the house, or like just pick some
Yeah.
small things and
Mhm.
then
Oh, you mean like
if
the
you
guy that fell through the glass skylight? Yeah, okay, that one.
yeah, did we really? Is that what happened?
Really, honest to God, that's what he did.
uh yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty weird. That's pretty weird. um yeah, so I don't mean to keep laughing, but boy, didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, that was rude.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, there's a good example of like just weird things that happen in our lives, and it's not always like horrible.
Mhm.
Like like sometimes like for myself is like, oh, I didn't make my deadline. Oh, it's like little weird things, and you think like, oh, no big deal, but down deep, it's a little bit of a thing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yes, it
And
is.
so I would say pick some of those, and then eventually, like the big one would be you having to reinvent yourself. I
Mhm.
mean, having something like your work be so directly impacted, how could that not impact self-image?
Yeah.
I for myself, whenever I've had like, forced changes, man, it kind of rocked me a little bit. I survived it, but it was a little hard on the self image, worth, value, whatever you want to call it. It was hard on all of that stuff. And so
Okay. So
start small.
start start with something small and
Yeah.
as insignificant as we can make it at this point.
I mean, it doesn't have to be like super tiny, but like I'd say like get a rhythm under you a little bit, because the big things usually don't shift right off the bat. And if you kind of go into it and you're like, I don't know how I feel about myself, and you start tackling that, it could be a little much.
Mhm.
And I'm, at least my experience was it was a little much. And
Yeah.
so, I start hitting some little ones where I can go, oh, hey, I do have a shift in image, and I did process something, I did let something go, I did you know change my perception. And then as time went by, I was like, ah, but there's this one thing. I tackled something after we did the weekend, as it's been in the air for a very long time, like a decade. Time to start addressing it. And there was nothing for me to do externally, but just internally, it's like time to address it. And kind of thought I already had, but apparently I had. And 5 years ago, I think it would have been a little too much. Now I can do it, but sometimes those little things kind of build your muscle so that when that big thing happens, it's like you have that momentum to push through it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thanks for the ideas.
Yeah. Okay, so first off, we're going to think of a positive self-image. Just see how you see yourself. Just reflect on that. You're not even inhaling yet. You're just kind of reflecting on yourself. Okay. So you're still reflecting on yourself, and now you're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths with the oil. Stay focused on yourself, that image of yourself. And then just pause and let go. Pause and let go. And then again, reflect on positive self-image, positive ways you see yourself. And then begin inhaling. And then just let go. Just let go. Let it incubate for a moment. Now, think of a situation or a person that when you get around the situation or person, you have a little bit of hard time with who you become or how you act or behave, how you think, how you feel, whatever that is. Think of that situation. And it's not so much a focus on the person or the situation. Use it to like trigger the way you think and feel. And then watch how you think and feel. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Then just pause and let everything go. Just let everything go. Think of a time, even just, like this is one that I was just kind of talking with Ralph about. When things didn't kind of work out, like something didn't work out, with how you expected, or, you'd been doing something for a while and then there was a dramatic change. Anytime we have times where things don't work out, we don't meet our goal, we don't meet our deadline, we're not able to maintain some situation, it always does kind of impact our self-image a bit. So think of times where that happens, and it can be even very, very small. It doesn't have to be big. Even little things can cut deeply. Like I'll share one. Just I think we need an example, and it's something that I've talked about before. Is like as a little kid, and I didn't know that it was an issue until I looked back at it. But I grew up in this little tiny town, and your friends were pretty much the kids on the block, and even you saw kids at school, still the kids you played with and everything, at least in this little town, were the kids on the block. Well, when I was about 9, we moved away. Not very far, but I wasn't on the block anymore. I was in a different school. And so all of a sudden I was around all these new kids, and I didn't know any kids on the block, and there really weren't that many kids on the block to begin with in this new place. And so, I had the issue of not having really friends in the neighborhood, being at a new school, not really having, my friends that I had. And, you know, at that age, friends of 2 or 3 years is like, a third of your lifetime. It seems like no big deal, but at the time it was. And then when I would go back and I would see my old friends, like when we'd go back and visit neighbors or something, like I wasn't the same. Like I wasn't part of the group. I wasn't in the little clique anymore. And on one level you could say, "Oh, I felt weird or it hurt my feelings a little bit," but it really kind of rocked who I was at that time. It it was very simple, and of course I worked through it, but it was like a weird year or so. And then when I started making new friends, like it kind of shifted and changed, but it was always a thing in the back of my head. So I would say something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be that somebody did something or, you know, these horrible things happen. Sometimes it was just change, or a shift, being out of place. You know, anyway. So reflect on something that was like based on a shift or a change, or things just didn't quite work out. Which one are you? Mm, 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 that's it. Mm. So you're reflecting on that situation. You see how you feel about yourself, or you see yourself, or you just feel like, ugh, and then begin inhaling the oil when you feel that. Ugh. We all got them. And then just be still. Just be still for a moment. Again, that same situation, that same change, that same shift. Reflect on it and begin inhaling. And then just pause and be still. And without inhaling, just reflect on the positive self image or just how you see yourself right now. Okay. Let's maybe share experiences, ask questions. Let's just see where everybody's at. Mute yourself, type in.
Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
Hey, Teresa.
Hey, Greg. Can I ask a question about the weekend that's come up in between? I just joined in a little bit late.
Mhm.
So some really big shifts, but
Mhm.
I found like something my mind wants to fixate on. It almost felt like a magnetic pull to something,
Sure.
like just an old pattern.
Mhm.
I was using like St. John's wort and rue to like disconnect from it, but I'm wondering, did we talk about on the weekend African bluegrass for fixation, or would there be anything from this that could help like a mental fixation on something?
Kind of tell me what's happening. Like, you don't have to give me the details of the situation, but like, you just keep going to it because it's a problem or something somebody said or did, or that it just leaves you feeling a little weird, or
I would
sometimes
say
that has to do
it,
with something like maybe that's a little still unresolved. You know, it's still poking at you somewhat.
yeah, it's really hurt feelings as in relation to like power games. And it just surfaced in an interaction, but I don't think that's where the root is. I can feel like if I said it was a magnetic pull in the past of 100%, it's probably down to like 10 or 5, so I can be absolutely aware of it and it's almost gone, but it was still just something that was really hard to disconnect from. And I think it's more, yeah, something.
Was it words or actions?
I would say the past it had been um words and then actions, but it's really more about emotion coming at me.
Sure. Um, I mean, using the bluegrass might help somewhat. Let me just look at it here for a minute. Give me a sec here.
Sure.
Okay, so if you drop down to segment 9,
Hmm.
so that's in the middle of page 5,
Yep.
and here it says cassia or cinnamon.
Hmm.
You would do the same thing, but instead of cassia or cinnamon, you'll use marjoram.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I mean, on a lot of levels, this is a good one. For one, marjoram by its nature helps to transmute, but especially out of the body.
Hmm.
Rose is very transmuting to the emotions, and cypress is very transmuting to the mind and the thoughts. Marjoram is very good for transmuting things in the body. And a lot of times when we're looking at like these past events, they're more physical and physiological than they are psychological.
Hmm.
We have a psychological response. Usually the deeper wound is like something that really kind of rocked the body, the physiology.
Hmm.
And the thing with uh, the marjoram is that it helps in times where either we felt fragile or the situation made us feel fragile. Like
Got
just some
it.
fragility, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And times when there's a big shift, times when somebody does something really crappy or something mean, especially if it's intentional or malicious.
Mhm.
You know, there's times where we defend ourselves and we're like, "Ugh," you know, and you give them a little bit of what for. But there's times where it really pushes us back on our heels. Even if we see it coming, sometimes it's like, ugh. And I would say that, you know, I've had times where, you know, in these situations, I put up the good fight. You know, I really put up the good fight. And then as time went by and time went by, more time went by, you know, I'm able to sit with it. Like when the dust has settled and is old and stale, you know, it's just gone.
Mhm.
I realized, ugh, that really knocked me back on my heels much harder than I thought. You
Mhm.
know, but when I was in the fight, you know, it wasn't really a fight, but like when I was in the survival stage or whatever you want to call it, like I really didn't see it that way. I
Mhm.
really just thought like, you know, okay, whatever, yeah. But as time went by and, you know, given the nature of the situation and the relationship with people and how like you know, sometimes just being so disregarded or so just dismissed or, you know, whatever it is,
Mhm.
that really kind of like touches that fragility, you know, and
Mhm.
as much as I've used other things, it's one of the things that I really like about marjoram because we all have it to a certain degree, and you know, a lot of times it's very unconscious. You know, for me, I would say most of the time it's unconscious. But like when I really sit and reflect on something, I'll go, oh God, like that got me a little choked up. I'm a little bit more, you know, injured in that area than I realized. And
Mhm.
marjoram's very good for that. Like marjoram's really good for that. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, you know, wearing it is good, salt bath is good, but that process and where we do the heart, the sixth chakra, the temples, and you know, an even stronger version of it. We kind of let the materialization breath do it, but doing the sixth chakra and temples together. You know,
Okay.
sometimes I don't do the materialization breath. I'll just do
Mhm.
chakra and temples after I've
Oh,
done
that.
steps, and I'll do those together, and I won't even do the materialization breath.
Mhm.
Um, you know, for like newer people, I thought the materialization breath was like a little bit better,
Mhm.
but like you know, you've been doing processes for a while. I would do the
Okay.
sextiles together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go into that this like quite involved at the, you know, we're leading up to it in the class in a couple of weeks in healing spirit.
Mhm.
It's even a stronger version of it is, you know, they're doing different things, but we're going to talk about how each oil has like a message for the intuition,
Oh, cool.
or like a program for the intuition. And
Mhm.
so one in October sets up the one in November. And you know, for like cinnamon, it's more about like being outgoing and expression, and so, you know, not being all caught up in the self-image and being so turned inward that we don't express it out, because a lot of times that's how we refine our self-image. But here we're trying to problem solve a particular thing, and I think marjoram's the best bet. But
Mm. Fantastic. Thank you. I
so
actually last night um did the marjoram body tonic that calms some things down,
yeah,
and that all resonates. I think.
marjoram's amazing. Like it's like when I first started, you know, when I first learned medical aromatherapy, like, you know, I don't know, 35 years ago, whatever it was, um, you know, marjoram was a bread and butter thing that we used. And then, like, as time went by, like in the American market, marjoram really kind of fell away, but it was like a bread and butter oil. And as time goes by, it's just like, God, there's just times where like I don't feel good or I feel a little blah or whatever. I'll take a salt bath or I'll slap on a body tonic. Marjoram always produces something, you know. It might not have been the magic bullet, but it still made me feel better. You know what I mean? It's just it's like having a good friend that you can just call whenever you are having that crappy day.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for that. This is I think the cypress wood unpacks something from the
Oh
hips
yeah,
down that shifted. And
cypress wood
then,
is very strong on the mental body. It's very cleansing to the mental body. So you probably definitely busted something loose.
and then, yeah, the two words that resonate the most, that even in this interaction, I know that's not where the root came from. It's just a opportunity to let it go. It's dismissed and hurt feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And being fragile at that moment. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I think anytime we're dismissed or any version of that, uh, it does kind of rock you to the core,
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It takes
Okay.
a lot of inner strength to push past that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of marjoram. How about that?
Yeah. Okay, great.
Thank you so very much.
I'm so welcome. Okay. All right. So let's just try to squeeze in a little tiny bit more. So after we do segment 8, let's just jump to segment 9. And cassia or cinnamon would be the choices. And we'll do a slightly different version without the materialization breath, the one that I just talked about. So choose whichever oil you're using. And then begin inhaling with your awareness on the heart. Your awareness is on your heart. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Your awareness is on the sex chakra. And then your awareness is on the temples. Your awareness is on the sex chakra and temples both at the same time. And then just pause. And that way. Okay, you guys, we won't work it too hard tonight, but yeah. Anybody have questions or want to do a share? Okay, you guys, well, this weekend is org programming, and I think a bunch of you have had it, so it would be a free review weekend. And I know it says in Spanish, but you guys will just be hearing English, and there is another stream going on simultaneously that will be in Spanish. So join us if you can. So take care.